In the NFL, we had a term for guys like Donald Trump and my opponent, Ted Cruz. Me guys. You know the type. Talk a big game, only care about themselves, but you don't want to be stuck with them at a barbecue. The truth is, America has never been about me. We will protect and restore reproductive freedom. We will secure the border. We'll protect Medicare and Social Security. And we'll turn the page and write a new chapter for this country and elect Kamala Harris to be the next president and beat Ted Cruz.
Congressman Colin Allred last night with a brutally honest and important message for the me guys out there, people like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, that despite their efforts against it, democracy is and always has been about us, we the people. Joining us now, the aforementioned Democratic Congressman Colin Allred of Texas, fresh off that address to the Hall in primetime last night. How was that? Well, tell me what that experience was like.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was great, and it was a unique experience for me. What I wanted to do in the short bit of time I had was introduce myself, talk about how important this election is, but also that we all know guys like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Anybody who's been on a team, anybody who's had to work in a group setting knows what I'm talking about. There's those guys who take all the credit, who don't do any of the work, who you can't count on in a crisis, and they're the guys who hold you back. And you can't have too many of them in any kind of team setting. In the NFL, locker rooms have a way of kind of churning those guys out. You see them bouncing around the league, going from team to team, even though they're talented. In the Congress, we have reached too many of them. And for Texas, we can't afford 6 more years of a guy like Ted Cruz who only cares about himself, but also when he's part of his self-interest is taking away the rights of Texans. And a lot of this convention was about stories of Ted Cruz's Texas, where Texas women were telling their stories about losing their fundamental freedoms and their rights to making their own decisions about their body. Where we're talking about how he has prevented us from securing the border, how we have to protect Medicare and Social Security. This is what Ted Cruz has made us into. And this convention in a lot of ways was about that.
It's such an interesting point. I watched every minute of it, and I didn't think about that. But you also heard from a Uvalde mom. So this is Ted Cruz's America that we're all living in when it comes to doing nothing about gun safety, something that upwards of 70–80% of all Americans want. Kate Cox was the Texas woman who spoke during the roll call about not receiving abortion health care. Again, 76% of Americans supported Roe, and he took that away. And his role in stopping the Biden-Harris administration from doing anything on immigration. I wonder if you can speak to the effort by the Harris candidacy to depict these things not as masculine or strong, but as cowardly and weak and small.
Yeah. Well, I think that they are pursuing the right path there. And for us in Texas, we're used to having independent leaders who put Texas first. We have a long tradition of this. You know this, Nicole. And in a lot of ways, Ted Cruz is a follower. He's a follower who just is trying to kind of, feed off of the scraps of, his leader who, in many cases, is doing things that are not in Texas' interest. And so what I've always tried to be is somebody who, listen, I'm a Democrat, obviously, but I'll stand up to my party when I think that we're wrong. And what we have to do is also put these folks in the right context. That for us, we don't have to be embarrassed by our senator. We can get a new one. We don't have to have a small senator who's a follower who doesn't get things done for us. We can get a new one. We can have a 4th-generation Texan who will care about all of us. And that's what this campaign has been about. I think that's obviously what we see the Harris campaign talking about, is that, yes, Ted Cruz was part of the effort to overturn the election in 2020. He was one of the architects of that. And so he's dangerous, but they're also small.
What is happening in Texas? I've had Beto O'Rourke on twice in the last couple weeks. I feel like he knows, precinct by precinct, that state inside and out. And he swears something's happening in Texas. What do your internal polls show?
Listen, this is a neck-and-neck race. And I know folks back home just need to understand that. I know who we are as Texans, and I know my state. I'm a 4th-generation Texan. born and raised here in Dallas. My family's from Brownsville. I went to college at Baylor. I know who we are, and we're not who Ted Cruz says we are. And what we've had happen is that we've had extreme leaders like him who've taken away our rights and whose rhetoric has now become policy. And so, yes, it was Kate Cox, who's a friend of mine, and Kate's going to be with me tomorrow at an event that we're doing here in Dallas. But also Amanda Zurawski and her husband Josh, who were telling their story about how they were denied the care they needed when she was going through miscarriage, and now she may never be able to welcome a child. Amanda and Josh are friends of mine, and Texans are hearing these stories and talking about these stories. And we're going to stand up for the real Texas, because if there's one thing I know about us, it's that we believe in freedom. And this is not it. You're not free when Ted Cruz is in your doctor's office when you're having these incredibly important discussions. And so, this is what this is going to all be about. Now, I need folks from all around to understand what's happening here in Texas and to be a part of it, and to go to colinallred.com and help us out. I know that you might not have understood my state in the past, but trust me, we've raised $1 million in the last 24 hours. Okay, we're doing incredibly well. We're going to beat Ted Cruz. And when we do, it's not just going to win for the Democratic Party. It's going to win for Texas.
Do you think Kamala Harris has a chance to flip Texas?
I don't know, but I know this. I really mean this, Nicole. I know that we're not a state that believes in extremism. We're not a state of extremists. I've represented President Bush, for the last 4 years in Congress, and I know you worked for him. And he's somebody who, in a lot of ways, I've known my whole life, growing up in Dallas when he was with the Rangers and then governor and then president. Mm-hmm. And they've gone so far from that version of the Texas kind of Republican values that I grew up around, that I went to folks at Baylor with, that they've left those far, far behind. And that's why there are so many Texas Republicans who do support me. That's why I got elected in a district here in Dallas that was a traditionally Republican district by folks who had voted for George W. Bush. And that's why now also on November 5th, I think we'll see a coalition, not just of Democrats, but of independents and Republicans as well, getting rid of Ted Cruz. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's something happening here, and it's going to have impacts up and down the ballot. But for us in Texas, the singular choice is that we have to choose who's going to represent us for the next 6 years until 2030, and we can't have that be Ted Cruz again.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. To your point, the Republican who most sees the world the way George W. Bush certainly did and the way he governed is Adam Kinzinger. And the only convention he was invited to speak at was the Democratic convention.
He's a friend of mine as well.
Fascinating times,
yeah.
I'm sure.